G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys NBA podcast, the All-Star edition. And we've got a couple of All-Stars here. If I do say so myself, I'm joined as always by Callum Mack. How you doing, man?
Pretty good, man. All-Star week. It's not there quite yet, but we got some players to talk about.
We got some team announcements. I wasn't sure, it came as a bit of a surprise. I wasn't sure if it was being announced today. So it's been announced already. I was hoping to get our picks before the announcements, but we did message the group chat last night. So these are honest sort of our picks before we got the picks revealed to us earlier today here in Australian time. So we're going to react to that in a second. And then we've got a few fantasy topics that we're going to cover. But before I sort of throw it over to you, we'll go team by team, West and then East. Just your initial reaction to the All-Star reserves being announced. Any sort of major takeaways?
I'm not surprised. I'm not overly surprised. I knew that. I feel like the one shocking for the West would have to be Chris Paul being thrown in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But I'm not really surprised by that because I knew the coaches and the players would probably put him in. I personally probably would have preferred Booker as that Suns. But we know he's got so much respect around the league that I just kind of anticipated this to happen.
Yeah, and look, I think it's hard because it's obviously they've got two big guys, Booker and we'll get into this a little bit more, but I think that was a big shock. I'd say another shock for me was no Pacers either way for the Eastern teams as well, and they're doing so well. And there's a couple of obvious candidates there, so that was probably my biggest takeaway. Happy my Celtics got two in there as well, so
500 team.
Yeah, we've been struggling recently, but. But hey, they both deserve it, so I'm happy they both got in there. Let's break it down. I want to touch on the Western Conference first. Now, I guess before we get into the actual teams, we'll go through basically. We'll flick down our picks on the screen for anyone who's watching on YouTube here. Of what we all predicted, which is funny enough because we all actually had the exact same predictions for the Western Conference. No one selected anything different, which I was very surprised by.
Pretty boring, really.
Yeah, pretty boring. And we picked every single person except for Chris Paul, as you mentioned. Every single one of us had Donovan Mitchell Devin Booker in over him. So I guess that's where we all disagree. Give me your case as to why Devin Booker should be in over CP3.
Well, I was kind of thinking about this today, and the one thought I had, I guess, in as a pro to Chris Paul going in is, let's say they did have like a 7-game series and they'd have to give like a most valuable player award. You could argue it goes to Chris Paul because he does do so much just to run the plays. Booker is just a scorer. He can get buckets. We know he's a closer as well, but Chris Paul can also be a closer. But if you look at the pure stats, obviously Devin Booker's doing better. He's like a 24, 4-4, as opposed to Chris is, more in the high teens with the 8 dimes, which is, great as well. The assists shouldn't be underrated. He's been doing this for years. But I just love Devin. I want to get him in there. Chris Paul's been to a lot of All-Star games. I'm just trying to share the love a little bit. I think like stat-wise, he does deserve it. And the Suns are doing so well that legitimate going to be a home seed. They're going to be the 4 seed.
I don't really see at this stage someone knocking them out unless maybe Denver go on a huge run to end the season. I don't know, maybe Portland if they can get themselves healthy. But I do think it's the 4th seed is theirs to lose. I can see the argument both ways. I don't hate it. I think for me, I picked Booker just because his efficiency this year is just taken to another level. He's the primary scorer on this team. He's shooting over 50%, which I was shocked to learn when I was researching for this. It's only just over 50%. But for someone, of his size, like he's not a LeBron type. He's not a Kevin Durant type. He's a proper shooting guard. He's not a big dude. So for him to be shooting over 50% for the season is really, really impressive. I guess the other way you could swing it is Chris Paul. The difference he makes on defense, and he himself is shooting very efficiently. Having a historic free throw percentage season, he is shooting 97% for the season, which I think is the highest in NBA history if he kept this up. So pretty efficient himself, and obviously sort of runs the defense there. So I guess that's the reasoning, and I can live with that. But like you said, I did want to see Devin Booker get in there because he hasn't made an All-Star team before, has he?
I don't believe so. I don't believe
Yeah.
so. I could check quickly.
Yeah, check real quick, but I'm pretty sure he hasn't. And I've seen a lot of NBA players, LeBron in particular, throwing out there that Devin Booker is the most disrespected man in the NBA, and you get all these sort of things. But it is hard to sort of pick him in there. Another way I was sort of leaning as well in my sort of picks here, and one of the person who was on the edges of the team was Zion Williamson for myself. I don't know about you though. I found the West hard to pick in a way that I feel like I was struggling to pick people who deserve it. Whereas when I went to the East, there was so many people that deserved an All Star nod that I had trouble to leave people off. Whereas this time I was like, I don't know, do I put Mike Conley on because the Jazz are doing so well, or do the Suns deserve too with Chris Paul and Booker? Does Zion deserve to be on there because the Pelicans aren't doing that good? They've done a bit better recently, but I ended up putting Zion in there because his numbers are just stupid, and he's an amazing player, and I would love to see him in there. But yeah, I felt as though that was the only other way I could get Booker in there. If CP3 was to make it, maybe you get Booker and CP and take off Zion. What are your thoughts about that? Do you have anyone else that you might trim off to get Booker in?
I'd probably had two other people in line just after that, and there would have been Ja Morant, who I did seriously consider,
Yeah,
who is putting up similar stats to Chris Paul, and like Chris Paul, he's just the absolute kind of floor general. He's the heart and soul of that team. He's what gets them wins.
yeah,
So I had to seriously consider him. He didn't quite get it. He probably would have been my next selection, and the person probably just behind him would be CJ McCollum because he was doing so well. But obviously with injuries,
yeah.
everyone loves to live in the moment a bit, and he obviously that was his downfall, sadly.
Yeah, well, I mean, he hasn't played that many games this season, but he was obviously at the pace he was going at was going to be a lock for the All-Star team. It just is a shame that he didn't make it. Obviously, you've got other injury-affected players such as Karl-Anthony Towns didn't make it this year, hasn't played that many games. And I'll throw out Christian Wood there as well. I reckon if he had played more games and at the pace he was going at, could have pushed for an All-Star selection. Um, you obviously had Zion in there. Was he always in your team when you were picking the reserves there?
Even a few weeks ago, I did vote for him. I had to get him in there, but
Yeah,
in the
okay.
past couple of weeks, he has totally ramped up. So now, and that's where
Yeah.
he made such a good push, which has obviously lifted him into pretty much a lock, and he's gotten the position. So it's great to see. I just wanted to see him because it was an all-star game. I just know this kid's going to be exciting to watch. But it's great
Yeah.
to see him actually putting out the stats to back that.
Yeah, like I think he deserves it, and I am glad that he's going to be in there. Keeping in mind, he's doing this on like 32 minutes a night, and his efficiency is just insane. And we're starting to see different evolutions of his game, like a little bit of that passing ability, a little bit of the defense as well. His free throw percentage is getting better, so we're starting to see the full potential of Zion. And I think, yeah, I think it's well deserving. And obviously, it's not going to be his. I mean, assuming health, this won't be his only All Star game that he'll play. He'll have many more in the future. So all around, I think pretty cruisy. Now, one of the players, Anthony Davis, is questionable to play in the game, so they'll often choose a replacement. Who do you think deserves the nod for replacing Anthony Davis? Is it as simple as Devin Booker just sliding in there?
It's got to be Devin Booker, right? It has to
Yeah.
be.
So I think I know Anthony Davis is a front court player. If you move Zion into that position, you can just add another guard, can't you? I'm pretty sure that's how it works, right?
I think that should be how it works. Just the next forward goes up a peg, and then you just get another wild card.
Yeah.
That's how it should be in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be that way. I'm pretty sure it is that way, but in case it's not, another forward that comes to mind might be Brandon Ingram again on the Pelicans. There are not many other forwards in the
You
West
can't
that I
have
can
two
really.
Pellies who have a losing record. I feel like you just
Yeah,
can't do that. You
but
can't.
who's another forward to put on that roster? Like, who is it really? Like, is it Joe Ingles? Like, who else are you going to throw in there? Kristaps, like he hasn't played that many times. I can't name another forward really that deserves to be on that team.
I mean,
Draymond.
I'd even give the edge to Christian Wood, who also would be injured.
Yeah,
But
still
I
in
would give
place.
the edge to him out of all those players if I could
Yeah,
vote.
yeah. Look, I think definitely considering the lack of forward talent or front court talent, sorry, on the Western Conference. Yeah, I definitely think that Devin Booker should be the obvious candidate to replace if Anthony Davis does miss, which I think he will. I don't think he's going to play. I think there actually might be a few players who drop out, or even a few players that play but only play a few minutes because of the condensed season. A few players are not happy about the All-Star game going ahead.